Recently, it's been possible to install the Xbox full screen experience onto PC gaming handhelds like the Asus RG Ally, as well as the MSI Claw AI8. In this particular instance, I have it running here. Now, I do want to make a quick mention that you can get this done pretty quickly. I'll have a link in the description field below to jump you over to Reddit. There, you're going to have 3 easy steps that you'll be able to enable this. Now, one quick note is that I did try to install this on my PC console, a video that I had done before, which I'm still using today. My PC is effectively my console, but I was not able to actually get it running even following those steps. So it does appear that there is a whitelist of sorts to be able to run the Xbox full screen experience at the current time, potentially, because it's not running there, even though I follow the same steps that I did here to get it running. So just be mindful of that probably you're going to need a PC gaming handheld that is approved to get this working before anything's going to show up. First, I think what a lot of people are excited about is that in the Xbox full screen experience, because there is a significant reduction in the amount of things that are loaded, that there is a significant savings in how much RAM is being occupied on the system when you're in this Xbox full screen experience. Now, initially, when I had looked at this, just jumping straight into it, I had saw somewhere around 1.5, 1.6 gigabytes saved. When I got to actually recording this, all I saw was 1.1 gigabyte saved, which is still significant. It's a 10% savings in RAM. And as far as Microsoft and Xbox had told me, they said 2 gigabytes of RAM would be saved. So anywhere between 1 to 2 gigs of a reduction is what you should generally anticipate to expect when running in the Xbox full screen experience. This is very helpful on systems that, especially like the original Asus RG Ally, had 16 gigs of system RAM. When you have not that much RAM, and especially you want to run more modern games, and you put in like a 4 gigabyte UMA buffer size, which would leave a 12 gigabyte amount for the system because you're reserving 4 gigs, there will obviously be contention for memory resource management. So just having 1 to 2 gigabytes saved is actually quite helpful because that's close to what we're actually reserving for the UMA buffer size. What this is helpful with is ensuring a consistent, smooth experience, especially without having to swap memory around, especially if you're going to be hitting swap. So this is overall good, and I think what a lot of people would consider as Windows bloat, which unfortunately doesn't save us all the time. And I'll get more into that in just a moment. I just want to continue talking about the good stuff that is on the Xbox full screen experience. Outside of just general usability, it's super cool. I do want to talk about something that we've already talked about before, and I'm super grateful of it. But now that I've been able to test it without being at an event or someone looking over my shoulder, is that the controller is a first class input for Windows now. And that is genuinely awesome to see. So when you when you have to sign in and put in your PIN code, it works just like how an Xbox PIN code would work, where all of the keys are already mapped to a certain button. So like left D-pad would be 1, so on and so forth. Pretty straightforward. You're not going to be moving around on there to get anything done. You'll just kind of peck at the D-pad and face buttons. You'll load in, go straight into the Xbox full screen experience, super fast. Everything's great there. Another thing that I wanted to test myself was, does this work in USC prompts without any issue? And I am super pleased to report that it does operate as you would imagine it does without any problems whatsoever. So as soon as you get a UAC prompt, you basically just press left on the D-pad, press A for yes, Bob's your uncle, you're done. So all of those initial problems that you would always have to use the touchscreen or something else to touch, all of that kind of goes away. And I'm glad that we're finally here. And there's like next steps that I would like Microsoft to take with regard to like mouse emulation outside of OEM support, but that's later down the road. And I'll just take what I can get at the current moment because this alone makes me super happy, especially if you're going to be looking at this for using as a console PC. And again, this does not run on console PCs just yet because it looks like there's a whitelist. But again, I digress. Let's go to what we need to start talking about. Now, there is a caveat here that we have to talk about. I have done a video about 5 months ago showing that AMD Strix Point power efficiency was largely fixed on Windows when using the 2531 drivers along with the tandem chipset driver that released at the same time and the latest AGISA. With all of those together, this system on Windows would automatically figure power out rather aggressively. And that video, again, 5 months ago, painted a great picture, especially because on the Xbox Ally X, which uses the Z2E, it's effectively the same thing as the HX370 AMD Strix Point. So ostensibly, everything's going to be fine here. So the things that I'm going to say might not apply to the Xbox Ally X. What they do apply to is that general power efficiency with the Xbox full screen experience is not fixed, even when Windows bloat is removed. So let's get into it. Jumping into just the Xbox full screen experience and running Silksong, I'm using around 22 watts of power in total running Silksong at 120 FPS. Now, running at 120 FPS is a lot more difficult than 60 FPS. It demands more from the system to hit that frame rate. So we will be using more power, but 22 watts of total system power is egregious, a lot for a 2D game. Now, what happens when I go into the desktop experience, the regular Windows desktop experience? Well, I use about 1.1 gigabytes more of RAM, but power doesn't change. I'm using the same amount of power, whether I'm in the Xbox full screen experience or in the regular Windows desktop. So that sucks. Well, what can I do? The simplest thing I could do is just say, hey, Windows, force the efficiency cores on Intel's Lunar Lake to be on. Park all of your performance cores and only use your efficiency cores. That's a super simple thing that I could just easily dish out. Don't touch TEP. I'm just saying use the efficiency cores. And we get around a 2 to 3 watts savings automatically and basically the same performance. So right off the bat, without even using any brain cells, just flipping the switch, I'm getting 2 to 3 watts better on power and no effective change. So, all right, well, 2 to 3 watts, you're saying, who cares, right? Well, the problem is that that's just the simple fix. If I wanted to do the things that I normally do, which is where I start touching CPU and GPU clock limits, well, then we extract way, way better gains. So if we were to take a look at this from like an 80 watt hour battery, right? At default, at using like 22 watt, we're going to have less than 4 hours of battery life playing Silksong. However, if we were to just put a limit on the CPU and GPU clocks, in the CPU side, I increased the minimum clock from 100 megahertz to 500 megahertz, and I decreased the maximum clock to 1.5 gigahertz. At this time, both P and E cores are now enabled. I'm not even saying don't use efficiency cores. I'm saying use all the cores, just limit your clock frequency to this range. And on the GPU, I say only use up to 850 megahertz on the GPU. And with those two settings, I'm getting effectively the same performance and half the power used. So to put in perspective, less than 4 hours of battery life in a default Xbox full screen experience where I'm still saving 1.1 gigabytes of RAM, where don't have a bunch of Windows stuff loaded, Windows is debloated and I'm using 22 watts of power, or we can go straight into Windows Desktop, have all of the Windows bloat, and I use half the power or get 8 hours of battery life. So for everyone that is still adamant that Windows bloat is the reason that power efficiency is so out of scope on these things, it just isn't the case. It really is that Windows Scheduler, Governor, everything about how it is divining how power is distributed on the system when it has a target is way out of whack. And this, I think Microsoft doesn't even care about it anymore. Microsoft is like, this is not in my hands anymore. Intel and AMD, you solve it. And Intel would rather their system always be super fast and performant at the expense of just wasting power and making you have less battery life. AMD on HX370 since 2531 did get this a lot better, although I have seen regression. So fingers crossed for the Xbox Ally X and the Z2E, we see better total system power here. But to expect the Xbox full screen experience to just magically make power efficiency better, despite that we're just running a whole bunch less in the Xbox full screen experience, don't expect that. You're gonna have a bad time. We still do need to effectively step in here. And going forward, as new APUs and everything else comes out, chances are we're still going to have to step in there until Microsoft either says, you know what, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, we can't trust you guys anymore. We are now going to be the power czar, and we will control all of the clocks when we know what frame rate we want to hit. So, unfortunately, that is still a problem that we have to contend with. Not for every APU. It's likely that a number of APUs will be fine, but some of them we are still going to have to step in if we want to extract maximum efficiency out of these APUs. Ultimately, I do want to address that I'm still very happy with the end result here of what we're getting out of the Xbox full screen experience, insofar as controller being a first class input finally, and reducing a lot of friction points for just using controllers on Windows PC and making them more console like in this particular environment. I think that's super awesome. And I think as a first step, it's a good first step. And I would love Microsoft to continue pushing forward. And if we must rely on vendors to fix this problem, that we really need to push harder on them, because this is not ideal, especially if we're looking to get the best battery life on these devices. And that's something that I've often been talking about. And hopefully one day we'll reach that. Thank you very much to my YouTube channel members, as well as my Patreon members. Your support really means the world to me, guys. I hope this video was informative. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.